Evening in Lucknow, the capital city of the Indian state of The streets were buzzing with vendors and food stalls, creating an everyday scene of hustle and bustle. The city's heart was beating to the rhythm of ordinary life. People were going about their day-to-day routines without a care in the world, but they had no idea they were about to witness something extraordinary. In the midst of this chaos, a remarkable event was about to unfold. A disguised district magistrate named Aditya Kumar Chowdhury was on a mission to experience the real Lucknow. He wanted to see the problems of the people up close and personal. So he decided to visit the famous Aminabad market, wearing a red lungi and a towel, hoping to blend in and better understand the challenges faced by the common people. As he strolled through the bustling market, he noticed a street vendor selling. He decided to buy some snacks and experience what it was like to be an ordinary customer. Little did he know that this seemingly simple act of buying samosas would lead to a series of events that would expose the harsh realities of the city. While talking to the vendor, Aditya realized how hard the man was working to make a living. Despite the scorching heat and long hours, he remained steadfast in his efforts to provide for himself and his family. It was a touching display of human resilience and determination. Suddenly, a group of policemen arrived at the market. They approached the poor samosa vendor and started harassing him. Without any warning, they confiscated all of his samosas and destroyed his cart, leaving him devastated. Aditya, who was still in disguise, couldn't believe what he was witnessing. How could these policemen treat an innocent man so cruelly? He decided to confront them and demand an explanation for their actions. But they paid no heed to his questions and continued to torment the poor vendor. To make matters worse, the police mocked him, not realizing that they were talking to the new DM of Lucknow. They accused him of being a busybody and interfering in matters that didn't concern him. The situation escalated when one of the policemen slapped him in public, humiliating him in front of everyone. He was arrested on charges of obstructing government work and disturbing the peace. The officers, still unaware of his true identity, dragged him to the nearest police station, treating him like a common criminal. Once inside, they threw him into a filthy lockup, slamming the door shut behind him. As darkness fell, he found himself trapped in a dimly lit room filled with other poor prisoners. It was a stark contrast to the comfortable life he had been living, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of despair. But instead of giving in to his circumstances, he resolved to find out why the police had behaved so brutally towards him. As he looked around the lockup, he noticed that the other prisoners were just as confused and scared as he was. Some of them had been arrested on false charges, while others had been framed by corrupt police officers. At that moment, he understood the gravity of the situation. These men were innocent, yet they had been stripped of their freedom and dignity. Determined to help them, he introduced himself and listened intently as each prisoner shared their story. He learned that many of them had been tortured and harassed by the police, who seemed to have no regard for their rights, it was heartbreaking to hear their tales of woe, but it also fueled his determination to bring justice to those who had been wronged. He spent the night in that filthy lockup, sharing what little food and water he had with the other prisoners. As the hours passed, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something was wrong. The police had been unnecessarily harsh on him, and he couldn't understand why. He had done nothing to provoke them, and yet they had treated him like a common criminal. This perplexing situation gnawed at his mind, driving him to seek answers. In the dim oil lamplight, he saw the other prisoners huddled together, whispering in hushed tones. Their words reached him, although he couldn't quite make out what they were saying. Yet, he sensed that they were talking about him. Curiosity got the better of him, and he strained to listen in. Suddenly, a name was mentioned, a name that made his blood run cold. Inspector Vikram Singh. The very same inspector who had arrested him was now being discussed by the prisoners in hushed tones. He listened intently as they spoke, piecing together the puzzle of his own predicament. And what he learned shocked him to the core. The prisoners told stories of how Inspector Singh had a reputation for being corrupt and abusive. Apparently, he used underhanded tactics to extract confessions and often framed innocent people on false charges. They also spoke of his tendency to humiliate and torture those in his custody, treating them like animals rather than human beings. With each story, Aditya's resolve hardened. He had to put an end to this man's reign of terror once and for all. He knew that exposing Inspector Singh was crucial not only for his own sake, but for the sake of all the innocent people who had suffered at the hands of the cruel officer. Determined to bring Singh to justice, he waited patiently for his chance to escape from the lockup and clear his name. The next morning, the inspector entered the lockup to take him out. He looked haggard and tired, his usual arrogance replaced by a forced meekness. He tried to make conversation, but Aditya ignored him, his eyes fixed on the door. When the inspector came closer, Aditya took a deep breath and confronted him, demanding an explanation for his arrest. But the inspector was prepared with a lie. He claimed that Aditya had resisted arrest and obstructed government work, and he intended to charge him accordingly. He leaned in close, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He thought he could intimidate Aditya, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. Undeterred, Aditya demanded to be released and informed of his rights. But the inspector wasn't having it. He tried to force Aditya to sign some papers, claiming they were necessary for his release. However, he suspected foul play and refused to sign without reading them first. This enraged the inspector, who slapped him across the face, knocking him down. Odysseus' dignity was shattered as he laid on the ground, helpless and humiliated. The inspector continued his tirade, threatening to charge him with more serious offenses if he didn't cooperate. Odysseus felt a surge of anger and fear, but he knew he had to stay strong. He knew that backing down would only encourage the inspector to push forward with his false charges, but he also knew that he couldn't take this abuse lying down. After some time, the inspector left, probably to prepare for a more brutal round of questioning. Alone again, Odysseus' thoughts raced. He had to get out of there, not just for himself, but for the other prisoners who were also victims of the system's abuse. He had to expose the truth behind his arrest and clear his name. He knew that the evidence was in the papers the inspector had forced him to sign, and he was determined to get his hands on them. As the day wore on, Aditya devised a plan. He would feign submission and sign the papers. But then he would reveal his true identity and hold the inspector accountable for his actions. It was a risky strategy, but he had no other choice. As dusk settled and the other prisoners were released, Odysseus was taken to a separate room to sign the papers. The inspector stood over him, a smirk on his face, confident that he had the upper hand. But little did he know that this was just an act. Once the papers were signed, Odysseus made a quick exit, leaving the unsuspecting inspector in the dust. He knew exactly where to go. The one place the inspector wouldn't think of checking, the telephone booth outside the police station. With trembling hands, he dialed the number he needed. His voice was shaking, but his resolve was firm. In a few short moments, his team arrived, their presence sending a shockwave through the police station. The inspector's face drained of color as he realized who he had just dealt with. His arrogance vanished, replaced by a desperate attempt to make amends. But it was too late. The damage had been done. The team took charge, questioning the inspector and searching the station for evidence of wrongdoing. The tables had turned, and the mighty had fallen. As news of the DM's visits spread, other officers and officials rushed to the station. The atmosphere was tense, with everyone wondering what would happen next. The media arrived, their cameras flashing, capturing every moment of the unfolding drama. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more romantic stories like this. I'll see you again in another new video. Until then, take care, stay healthy, and stay safe. Wishing you all the best. Goodbye for now, and thank you.